as a DM, I just want to create an area tonight. Well, I mean, all this week. An area where players can play. A directionless game where players aren't sure what to do. Oh yeah, so that's in that's in a Sandbox. Yeah, turn into sightseeing tours, and that could be a part of it. In this case, I'm not. In this case, I'm not going to be. I mean, if story elements come up, that's fine. In fact, that's kind of the result of us going through the creative process. Oh, wouldn't it be cool if? Or, wow, that combination of things was really interesting. And so what if we held an adventure here? You know, so that this is creating a setting. In its own way, it's kind of like this. In Tomb of Annihilation, this is a very good example. Right? Here is your sandbox, although there's not exactly a lot of sand. I mean, there's a little bit on the beaches, perhaps. But take a look at Chult. And this is a spoiler-free map. This is what you would receive as a player character from the quest initiator. So there's no spoilers here. This is a sandbox, right? There's a couple cities here and there. It's largely unmapped. There's a couple things that are just known to exist, because how can you miss those mountains rising so high up? You know, people have sailed around it and such. But this is an approach that we're going to be going through over the course of the week. If you want it to be a hex crawl, it could very well be a hex crawl. I mean, hex crawl and sandbox do have some overlay, or like some overlap. You know, because there's an overarching goal in Tomb of Annihilation, but there's not exactly, you know, you just do whatever you want. You could completely ignore the goal if you really want to. There's nothing stopping you from ignoring the goal. There's no enforcement mechanism to propel you forward. Cheers to you, Daly. We're thinking of you. Roger, hey Roger, something I like to do with my settlements is to give them a patron deity, like the way Athens had Athena, etc. We can end up instituting cultures like that. In fact, over on D&D time, hey Gaming Zeta Naziro, I see you there. And Rytel has joined us as well. Rytel, don't forget, if you haven't already, there's miniatures for you at the store. Wait, have I missed anyone else? Man, you're sneaking up on me here. And Fluffy Sheep is snurfling as well. Well, I mean, if we want to turn it into a hex crawl for players, that's fine. Of course, the person who mapped this out knows where everything is. And in fact, I wanted to be careful because there is a complete map. And this workshop is more for us as DMs. I want us to sit down and I want to create a total Chult where the hexes aren't blanked out. And I have this here just because I don't want to spoil anything for any of you who haven't played Tomb of Annihilation. That is uncanny, right, Tal? Oh, you picked him up on Monday? Awesome. It was a rock lobster. Hey, that could be a fun creative monster that could live in this area here. In a way, Fox in a Box, we're going to create just a region. We're going to create a region not unlike Mesotopia that we did last year. In fact, I'll show you here. So about a year ago, we did an exercise where we created several different regions and we mapped them all out and we made an area. Now, I really liked our Lomash region, our kind of, you know, our like Arabic style peninsula, slash like Egypt, Northern Africa, going into that. I like that, and we can incorporate that perhaps in a fashion, maybe as a jumping off point, similar to how Waterdeep can be a jumping off point for players to travel from the northern lands of Faerun down to a more equatorial or southern lands of Chult. I mean, Ivalon, we can always put hexes over it, but for right now, we're in God mode. We're going to be creating lands and seas and raising mountains, and laying low the sinners. We're going Old Testament with this, as we are going to create and destroy civilizations. We are going to build the world. Yes, and we'll even create salt and people. We're going to turn people into pillars of salt. Should they defy us, Fox in the Box, for we are the DM. It's a salt box. That's one way I guess I'm looking at it. Oh, Daly's saying time to open world, Anvil. Yes, we did have a sexy lobster. Let me get that microphone out of there. All right. Line this up a little bit. Yes, that's... You can just see the miniature box. Right, I had to move some stuff around recently, so you can just see the minis, like, boop, 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 right over my shoulder here. So yeah, we're gonna conceptualize, and something that I would like us to do as well is to take a step away from... How do I want to put this? I want to take a step away from the player's handbook, in so much that I'm not interested in creating a dwarven mountain kingdom. I don't want to create an elven forest monarchy or something. I want to set the traditional races aside, and I want to do some interesting things, perhaps some challenging things, so that if we do reference Lomash, which I would like to go back and develop a little bit more, I would like this to be a little bit more wild, maybe different. You know, we've never, well, not never, actually. In this case, when we finished doing a campaign in each of the parts of Mesotopia, we then went outside of it, and we had like a goblin city and a couple other things. So we might entertain some lizard folk cultures or things along those lines. Or we might take an example of a culture that we hold traditionally and maybe turn it on its side a little bit. And, you know, even in Tomb of Annihilation, they do that to an extent with the albino dwarves as a good example. A D&D Canada. We'll see what the dice roll. Yeah, a highly advanced orc society. As I was saying, I was over at D&D time a little bit earlier, and in the closing, I was typing on my mobile phone, and I was talking about what we're going to be doing. The autofill said Android Flesh instead of and Flesh Out. And so I think Jeremy called me out on that, like, androids with flesh. And you know what? if the autofill said Android flesh, then you know what? Maybe we can work with something along those lines. And yeah, we can consider other peoples and cultures like plant people, like the Florins over in D&D time. I'd be fine with that. But first, we need to know the lands from which these people come from. The land itself helps define a culture, a cuisine, a religion, law. I mean, all of this stuff derives from the conditions in which you live. If you live next to the sea, there are going to be certain cultural aspects that are going to be more maritime based. Symbolism, your language might be more about the sea and travel. I mean, look at the Ferengi. I know it's a made up language, right? But the Ferengi have 100 different words for rain because it rains almost all the time on their home planet, and so they've just existed long enough to understand the subtleties of the different types of rain that fall on what Ferengor is their home planet. Josh, you just finished your first session as a bard. How did it go? Did you have a lot of fun? Can you give us a little blurb about what happened at your tabletop? Ferenginar. Thank you, Fluffy Sheep. There you go, Fluffy Sheep. You have a fan in Ivlon. I used a real instrument, and I spent the whole session playing Octopus Garden by the Beatles. You have your Waterworld's races sorted? You've always been a fan of Fluffy, says Ivlon. Hey, Fox in the Box, I'm glad that you have. And maybe what we're doing here can further help you in some way. How about that? Well, why don't we begin, huh? So we have some inspiration. I have our core rulebooks, because we can even take inspiration from the monster manual. If something seems like, I don't know, a certain monster would live here, then let's research it, because there's a lot of notes. For example, the Goblins, Volo's Guide has a bunch of stuff there. There's notes on golems and how they're created. Golems, I mean, we talked about fleshing out androids. This could be something where there's just a region of golems. And that's the native race, if you want to call it as such. You know, we started with Galeb Durs. There's a little bit of a difference. I guess one's natural and one's not, but I don't know. Between, you know, a Galeb Dur and something like a clay golem. One that's a construct, one that's an elemental, but they're both animated pieces of earth. Yep, I remember watching that. There was the controversial gun episode of Gargoyles as well. It reminds me, I made a new enemy NPC I wanted to talk to you about, but tonight is map night, and maybe I'll do it another day. Well, gaming, you can always bring it up. If I can talk about it, I will. There's a lot of other folks here who might be able to give you some feedback. What would a country of gargoyles look like? They're elementals. It depends. In vampire, gargoyles are constructed by the Tremere, and they are servants, or they're supposed to be. But they could be whatever you want them to be. They could just be summoned elementals or molded, or they would be like golems, and you could just reflavor them as constructs instead of elementals. All the buildings are decorated with people. See, and this is the type of stuff that I want to delve into. But let's. Oh, jeez. You don't poke the fox in a box. She'll apparently poke back, and she has a kniff. Yeah, and you know what? Maybe we can incorporate that here. Everyone just works at night and they sleep during the day. And, you know, if you don't really need to worry about shelter, then you just exist until you don't. Or they create some sort of a safety area where they cluster in during the day, and it's really odd. Yeah, we can explore all this stuff. Yeah, we'll make an ecosystem. Now, you may remember this. We've used this on the stream a bunch, and more recently, we used this layout with the fox in the fox in a box, not a fox in the box. This is the fox in a box. Emphasis on the fox, but it's any old box. But we're talking about the fox. We're going to go through these exercises here tonight, but I do want to throw out these ideas. Well, I mean, not throw them out like they're bad. So we have apparently from my mistyping or the autofill, androids in flesh ? Gargoyle country. Is that like Bat country? The mistress of many boxes. So there's only one fox, but there are many a box. Let's see, it was brought up, maybe plant country. Let's see. So, what else was brought up? I know I was talking about things like albino dwarves, where we take maybe a common race and we give it what's a twist? Did I miss another? So I saw plant people. Fox in the Box likes kobolds. Tabaxi, bug people, lizard folk, Yuan-Ti. Blink Dog, says Roger Twy. What if androids aren't in conventional flesh, but they have created something they call flesh, so they look more human, and some androids don't like that way of living? Blink Dogs have a language, yeah. Blights. Oh, Blink Dogs are actually in the back. Blink Dog understands Sylvan but can't speak it. They do have an average intelligence. There's an example of a Blink Dog. Now, some aside from just the people who live there, and we'll generate the terrain. I also want to come up with some interesting landscapes. You know, we have a lot of the basics, and they work. Just look at any Bob Ross painting. Most of the time a mountain, most of the time water, most of the time trees and grass and ground and flowers, right? It might be snowy. It could be tropical and a beach time and again. There are even a couple paintings where there's no trees. It's very rare. And, you know, some places have cabins, some don't. Some have a lake, some are just sort of deep in the woods. But I want to take some locations and I want to make them different in some way. There are the random roll charts, you know, such as a weird locale, and we will apply that. But I'm talking about overall. Do we have something that is a volcano that is always erupting? And if so, how does that work? And an example would be Sea of Sand says gaming. Yeah, so we could have a crystalline volcano. So it maybe a lot of it is like silica or something. And so crystalline gargoyles, maybe that's they're not a race yet, I don't think, in 5th edition, but maybe that's where shard mines can come from. Where does the lava go? And some of this depends on your comfort level or your knowledge of geography. And here's an interesting example. So here we have the world. I'm just kidding. Although let me make this brush a little bit bigger here. So here we have the world. It's a potato. Is that more believable than than it just being flat and square here? And if we have like a fixed point in the mantle where the lava is coming up, but we have a continent that drifts over time, right? So we have a fixed point here. What that's going to do is there will forever be a volcano here. But what that's going to do is that is going to leave like a scar across the plate, right? So it erodes over time and as other things happen, but just in a geological time scale, we have a fixed point on our Earth, but it's the plate that's constantly shifting over that this is melting through. And so the volcano is ancient and fixed, and the volcano just always seems to grow and trail off in this direction. And this is creating this kind of like volcanic scar across the land. Is it potatoes all the way down? A volcano that's just a giant geyser? Yeah, something along those lines can happen where it's something that is that builds and erupts. Now the question is, if it is building and erupting, what is well, you know, it might be a problem that could take care of itself. Hey, Fi, welcome. So in this case, what that could end up being, let me go back. So with plate tectonics and learning this stuff as a DM, can really help you out. Now, one way to make mountains is for, let's see, I think this is called a subsuming. This is a subsuming plate. And so this one is being being shifted up in this collision. And so this is making mountains. Or in the case that maybe what you're talking about, gaming, what can happen isn't that the plates are doing this, but this could be where the two plates have met. And they're kind of buckling on each other here. And perhaps with the geographical, with everything that's happening here, it's kind of like it's constantly squeezing this this geological pimple, and so it's pushing the magma up, and it maybe it's in some kind of a cycle, and so this grows and it grows and it grows. And then maybe it goes through a period where it topples. And so it kind of crumbles back down and crumbles back down. And it grows and it grows. Until you just have really a huge, like a mesa of sorts that has just been built up, crumbles with erosion despite the near constant eruptions from the plates that are just sort of churning and kind of popping this global pimple. I hope that's not too gross for you all out there. And so it'll get into an odd shape, wind or gravity will topple it, but it just keeps going. And so it's constantly venting gases and minerals and all kinds of chemicals that are created in this broth. And this could have some very interesting effects on the local wildlife that have grown to adapt. In fact, look at the creature that live by the underwater vents, like these volcanic vents. It's enough. The temperature is enough to boil water, and it's a chemical soup that is just erupting from the earth. And yet, in these extreme temperatures, with little to no light and all these chemicals and everything that is swirling around, life has found a way. And what could live in an area like this, where if the prevailing winds carry the smoke this way, what do we have here for water? That's mixed in with this kind of ash snow and low light and this chemical broth and the heat. And this could even cause some interesting lightning storms. So we're getting little zappy doos in the water. Like this is a process for creating life. Depending on your personal take, some people believe one thing, some people believe another. This is very much how life could have started. In the chemical bath that was water and minerals and chemicals and lightning strikes to the ocean, and just the randomness that occurs in the churning and the constant in the radiation and everything. This is how life occurred, and we could probably get some really cool elements that could turn into a sentient race, or maybe there's not races that live here that become sentient. They've reached jellyfish, and that's the most advanced. And by the way, that's a reference to a book, and if any of you get that, if any of you get the reference to a jellyfish being the most advanced thing around, as it brags about itself to an anthropologist, then bonus points for you. Oh, you have to get going? See you later then, the Fox in a Box, and howdy, Diadems. I guess you're getting tagged in. Yes, gaming, life finds a way. Yeah, earth pimples, oh sheeps. Yeah, Yellowstone. Yep. Interesting picture to see on arriving. Yeah, so this isn't D&D. Apparently you are taking Geology 101. Haha. It's really, really weird. Well, you know what? We can't be normal here, Ivalon. We have to dare to be stupid. So we can play around with the forces of nature. We're dungeon masters. right? If we want to create a race or just a geography that's like this, we can set down an eternal volcano that is constantly erupting and collapsing and just constant churning and changing. We can just have... We can have a desert that has, I don't know, something... there's something about it that's causing... We can go back to lightning strikes, and there's fumaroles. Fumarole. There's fumaroles everywhere. And the composition of the sand in this desert is such that, I don't know, maybe you're getting like electromagnetic patterns in this desert, so that when lightning strikes, it is creating this kind of this lightning glass. And I hope I'm using the word fumarole correctly. If one of you can check on that for me to make sure that I'm being correct, that way I'm not embarrassing myself. Hey, Joe's Life, welcome. But let's say that the lightning strikes in the desert here. Maybe it's a very mineral-rich sand, and the lightning arranges the sand in various patterns because of, in that moment, how the grains become charged and align themselves, almost like if you ever put a magnet in the middle of a bunch of like iron filings, and it could even create things that could look like mountains. Here, let's so here we'll have a very mineral-rich substrate, right? And then we put a thin layer. No. Yeah, look at me. I'm an artist. I'm using my tools. Be proud of me. And then we put something like a thin layer of sand on top of this. All you artists out there, you better watch out. Matty Morgs is coming for your commissions. And so now we have something like a lightning strike. Zzz. You got to make the sound effects. And this can charge. Maybe this melts in some way, and so it creates a little bump of molten, right? Because it kind of pulls together. And a lot of the sand is pulled in. And then lightning strikes again, and lightning strikes again over years and years and years. And so you're getting this sort of natural, like a totem pole, because it's melting the sand that is also maybe iron rich or mineral rich, along with the substrate that is being exposed and pulled up and cooling and being zapped. You have almost something like the lightning planes from Final Fantasy X if you played. And so all throughout this desert, you have these odd kind of like lumps that when viewed from above, here's, when viewed from above, if lightning were to strike, right, bzz, 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 they would end up, we would have kind of our tower of sand and rock that's been built up. And then you'd see that the sand lines up in this electromagnetic kind of pattern, as we have the layers of boulders and the melts and the fusions and the glass and everything here that's been built up in this kind of conglomerate tower from all of the lightning strikes. And this is spread out throughout the desert. And you get something that seems very mysterious or odd. In its own way, if you've ever seen are they the traveling stones or the walking stones of the Pontiac Desert? Do you all know what I'm talking about with those? The materials of the Great Pyramid of Giza would have made it a giant piezoelectric generator. So what that requires a lot of quartz, because piezoelectricity is electricity generated from like vibration and stress. Sorry, I missed some conversation here. So Joe arrived. The volcano exists in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle. That explains where the lava disappeared to. Oh, okay, there's that. This week, my D&D game, our DM had a ship full of pirates come after us. We started the encounter with 5 natural 20s. The DM didn't know what to do. Well, hey, sometimes that happens. Oh, Sheeps loves All Might. Oh, there you go, Black Wolf. You struck a good chord. It's okay, Gaming Zeta. I don't get art commissions either. Sometimes the players just stomp the monsters. Yeah, it does happen. Ginger Babe, hey, welcome back. Good to see you. They're called the Rolling Stones. Ba-dum-bum. Stress generated, yes. Piezoelectricity is electricity created from tension, stress, vibration. You have 65 husbandos. Well, oh, sheeps, whatever. It's 2019. Who cares? It's your life. You live it. So we have this that can happen. And think about this too. What if some of these form natural lenses that then go through and create that they'll focus patterns, and so you'll get like this extreme heat that's like scorching, and that's scorching and melting the rock and the sand, and it's creating these odd extra patterns. And how is this explained? Is this the work of the gods? Is this a force of nature? Can this be explained by science? Does any of this exist because there's even a sentient society around? What kind of creatures would live in an area like this? Ones that are probably going to be resistant or immune to lightning, or at least know how to avoid it. Maybe things that feed off of the filings or the pilings. Yeah, they very much can, Joe's Life. In fact, look, maybe an explorer comes by, sees these things, and understands these are inherent, like these can conduct magic like no one's business. And now all of a sudden we have some conquistadors moving into our region who want to harvest each of these little towers. I mean, because these maybe aren't even huge. They don't have to be miles high or anything like that. Who want to harvest them and sell them. And these things take... These things take thousands of years to grow, 10 feet tall. And so we're running into something along those lines. Hey, that could be, right? Because what I want to create, and I think we're doing a good job talking about this, I want to create the new world. I want to create... Not that there can't be sentient life that lives in our region here, but I just want to create a place that has, things that might seem common, but they're different somehow. Imagine if you're coming from England, and I don't believe that there's really any geyser activity. I mean, there's fault lines, and we get some of our terms from the old coal mines and stuff for that, but I don't know if there's necessarily any geyser activity. So imagine... I mean, if you are from England and you see a geyser for the first time out in Yellowstone, that's going to blow your mind. How can the Earth just rupture water like this on some regular basis? Or how did it get superheated? And we can attribute it to all kinds of things in an early understanding. So we have all kinds of things to wonder about here. So we have a constant volcano / like a world or a continent scar. We have a magnetic desert. And if we come up with other ideas, then, you know, this is just a blank sheet of paper in front of you can do fantastic things to just get your imagination going. Your week's been pretty hellish, and it doesn't even feel like I've gotten anything done. Oh, rip. All right, so we have it says a settlement concept. You know, I'm not I don't we don't have to be a stickler that this is a sentient settlement. This could just be region, something along those lines. Let's go through a practice run. We could still apply it, but let's at least do a warm up in talking about developing a region. And while I am going to be rolling for random traits, I do this not because I feel dependent on them, because you know what? The first almost hour that we've been broadcasting here, this has just been us talking. We don't need random rolls to tell us about an eternal erupting volcano, or about a magnetic desert, or about maybe in a watery area there's coral that just grows, and the coral even grows above the surface of the ocean, and it forms a forest both above and below the waves. That could be really cool as well. Because ultimately, as a dungeon master, look, this is your imagination. The random rolls I do are an exercise to show you that if you ever are stuck, if you do need some help, or you just want to challenge yourself, how can you take the results you get and use them as a springboard for your imagination? All right, so let's go to page 68 of the player's handbook. And we're going to page 68 because the ranger and the druid, both offer 8 different broad biomes in which they exist and get certain skills. Pardon me. So basing something on a broad mechanic would indicate that perhaps more druids or rangers of this lifestyle emerge. Lifestyle? Maybe. I mean, if you live in an Arctic area, you have a certain lifestyle. So I'm going to roll 2d8. And we're going to figure out in this fantasy, like the Sandbox region, what does this region offer us? There is a land table in the DMG as well. What page is that on, Evelyn? I don't have that immediately in front of me. Because we could do it that way as well. It does. Well, then I think I know the area you're talking about. It does list monsters, and you can do things that way. And heck, you can even go to Kobold Fight Club. That has an awesome redux of monsters in the regions in which they are generally known to live. Eight and 1. Arctic Underdark. Hey, Orcs Make Beautiful Lovers is here. Welcome, yeah. How did your session of Waterdeep Dragon Heist go? I was able to hang around for a while, and it was fun watching y'all play. And it was great catching you broadcasting, because you've been such an enigma so far, Orcs. I haven't really gotten the opportunity to. You won your first round at the Greengrass Festival, like a round of drinks? Oh, pit fighting. Got it. Well, congrats on that. A gladiator monster hunter. And I heard you talking about a half-orc, but was that half-orc for another game, or is that the one that you're currently playing? Alright, so we have an Arctic and an Underdark theme. I'm Knock the half-orc. I think I see where that name is going. And I'm trying to fight, and you're trying to fight Yagra the half-orc to marry her. That sounds very Klingon. Now, we can roll for a form of government. I'm not necessarily interested in the moment at creating. Well, you know, I guess we can as a placeholder to get us to think about the conditions. But if this is more of a region, you know what? I'm gonna pass for right now, and we'll come back to that. But something that can exist here. Let's go to page 108. This is something that is personal. I like having 3 different features to an area, whether it's a city, it's the county, it's the state, it's the whatever, it's the continent. There should, in my opinion, always be 3 different things that you can look at: a historical site, a wall, a piece of public artwork, whatever. She's the city champ and I'm the divisional champ, so all roads lead to this. So, this is, I'm just getting like the nice, you know, in various animes, there's like the tournament arc. And so I'm getting this feeling about, you know, this is a big championship. You know, you got to get in there, you got to fight, but you're doing it not just for the sake of fighting or of proving yourself to yourself. You're doing this for love, and because you respect Yagra. You respect her enough to pummel her because that is how you express your love. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that's like we're meeting as honorable combatants and we're proving our strength and our commitment to our art together. Well, we are orc. That's like something in a sitcom, right? You look at the camera, you're like, well, we're orcs. Dun-dun-dun-dun. She's warborn and fought in the Goblin War, so she has the fighting spirit. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna roll 2d20. 4 and 3. Faces carved into a mountainside or cliff. And giant statues carved out of a mountainside or cliff. Arena bred and she's warborn. We are the orc stereotypes. But you know what? I think that you two will make an awesome pair together once you realize how well you're made for each other. And now a weird locale. I'm going to roll 1d20 for this. All right, I'll hold the fort down. Got to go get my sister from the airport. Daly? Yes, sir. We will hold down the fort for you until you get back. Drive well, my friend. We'll see you back here. 3. A wild magic zone. Weird location, a fort held down by Maddie Morgs. I think the unofficial lore is my father is orc, so I have the fighting spirit. Her mother is orc, so she is the human strategy. So in the oh shoot, shame on me for forgetting the name. It's a pennant square, right? Where you put the genes from one parent on top and the genes from the other. Do you have like a 25% chance to make a pure orc baby? A 50% chance to make another half orc? Or a 25% chance to make a pure human baby? Also, heck yeah, orcs, you win that, you win, fight that wife, but in a consensual cultural. Yeah, exactly, Trust a Flump. It's cultural. Whatever it is, it's going to be a fighter. I like that answer, orcs. Now, if we're not putting in a civilization just yet, and that's fine, because we're setting the basis. What exists here? And you can say, well, but Matt, how can you have faces carved into a mountainside or cliff if there's no people that live there? And I will respond, but chat. It's completely possible. You know what? I should have... it's not too late. Heh, before doing that, I should have just erased that. Because now I have to go back and erase all this stuff anyway. Oh, what a tangled web we weave. All right, so what I'm getting, pardon me, what I'm getting from here, this play, and these are more DM notes. This is just thinking out loud. This place is Arctic, frigid, and the snow keeps blowing enough that it is forming constant high glaciers. Ice Age stuff. However, the tempests also drive wind, and the glaciers erode the earth, causing sand and pebbles to slowly carve into the natural ice walls. Over time, over great time, this has created a series of natural windy tunnels that are shifting, growing, collapsing, or moving with both the howling winds and the glacial movement. That is where the Underdark influence comes, in that plants and animals, maybe even a sentient race, have taken shelter from the constant snows and winds. And an ecosystem has developed in this massive, maybe even like semi-continental glacier. Yeah, the Ghost of Dr. Phil, when you were doing that voice, Orcs, I was rolling. It was great. I really enjoyed that, Orcs Make Beautiful Lovers. You're not going to pass on the spell sword, Gene? You have a pop-up book of Waterdeep laws. Black Wolf says, I'm going to try to think of a beginning for my superhero story tomorrow. Beginnings are always the hardest for me. Middles and endings are easy for me. Not beginnings, though. There's a lot of easy techniques to be able to go and extrapolate that, or to create it, Black Wolf. I think you'll do just fine with it. Things to think about when populating this area. Extreme cold. Need for heat. Or adaptation. Food sources. Predator/prey. Plant life. Whoop. Aquatic life. Because the Underdark is a very... The Underdark is a very, like, hyper-Darwinian area, right? Very competitive. Lots of different influences that that also, in effect, cause change if you want to survive. Are there traditional creatures that have adapted? Think of something like the Alolan Vulpix or the Alolan Sandshrew from the latest Pokemon games, and how those are ice-type Pokemon because they have adapted to an icy environment. Are there Galeb Durs, but they're more like glacial Durs? And so, yes, they technically have Earth Glide, and yes, ice is technically water, but we still count them as an Earth Elemental, or we give them Ice Glide instead, because they've adapted, if we want to populate it as such. Oh, Orcs, you're time for bed. All right, Orcs. I agree with Trustaflump. Go make some beautiful love. Be well, Orcs, and thanks for stopping by. Or name it Slush Rush. Yeah, you can do that too. Welcome back, gaming. You know, with all of the grinding, the grinding glacial stuff, and I don't know if trees might not exist here, but you can find, you know, because we're still talking, there's dirt, there's stuff that's kind of brought up with the glacial scrapings along the ground. There's probably a lot of smaller plants, lichens. Lichens can grow in an environment like this. Moss. In fact, Diadems, if you're still out here, you might be, well, if any of you know out there, then Alaska has a lot of peat moss. So mosses, lichens, maybe some other simple vegetation. Maybe an exotic kind of a mushroom. Mushrooms can grow in some colder environments as well. And then what would feed? Oh, pardon me. What would feed on those? On those plants? or what kind of fish might grow in such an environment. I like the thought of a monster that's like a sentient moss ball. Yeah, so almost like a Deku scrub, right, Zeta? Yeah, it could be something that grow. Maybe it grows towards warmth, or it's a symbiotic, or even a parasitic, where it wants to grow where things are warmer, so it grows towards the light. So it can be used for survival that way. But if you're not careful, then maybe it could grow on you or somehow like infect you if you eat it unprepared, or like, I don't know, a seed gets under your skin or something. Something like that could be interesting. Although, I mean, if it's sentient, then that's its whole other thing. Well, I mean, hopefully you mean gasoline, but still, be cautious of that if you're getting either gasoline or natural gas smells wafting through Black Wolf. All right, let's try another one here. We're gonna roll 2d8. 4 and 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Forest and mountain. Okay. $2d20 for the monuments. 5 and 9. Oh, pardon me. An intact obelisk, etched with, we'll just say something. And 9 is an intact statue of a person or deity. And a weird locale is 1d20. 19. A canyon containing a dragon's graveyard. I think there's a lot we can do with this. All right, so we have an area that has mountains and forest. Now, we could directly link this to the other region that we're conceptualizing, or this can be, meanwhile, elsewhere, across the continent. An obelisk etched with something, and an intact statue of a person or deity. Now, remember, a person doesn't have to be a human or a humanoid. I mean, this is just of... We could replace that with, oh, pardon me. It's a statue of a monkey. Now, who made the statue of the monkey? Maybe other monkeys. Maybe people who just like monkeys. It could be a statue of a flail snail. And who created the carved statue of a flail snail? And this is interesting as well. A canyon containing a dragon's graveyard. And we can look at this, actually, we can look at this in a couple ways. This could be a singular possessive, a dragon's graveyard, or a dragon's graveyard, which is the plural possessive. Or we can switch this around and say a monster's graveyard. And maybe something mythical. It could be a unicorn graveyard. It could somehow be a whale graveyard, even though it is landlocked. So how do you have a whale graveyard in this forested mountain? Well, look. Not all areas that we know today that are land were always dry. Oh yeah, Black Wolf, in the villain's lair, in a tavern, deep in the capital city of the enemy country. I was imagining a canyon filled with dragon bones, and there's nothing wrong with imagining that. They could just be there. Maybe, in fact, it says a dragon's graveyard. It could be formal. There could be headstones and monuments and etchings, and maybe that's where the obelisk and the statue are. That is the gateway to a formal graveyard. It could just be bones that are scattered throughout. Trust the Flump, you said you wanted to be a little bit of a paleontologist. Maybe this is you're exploring and you find this canyon set in a foresty canyon. What is that, a Ponderosa? Am I getting my terms? Not the restaurant, obviously. But there's a name for like a pine canyon. I think that's what a Ponderosa is. Anyway. Yeah, and so Trust a Flump, you're kind of flumping through, and there's dino bones in them thar hills. They're petrified. And all you have to do is just go and hit them with a pickaxe, and there they are. There's a lot of ways that we can take this prompt. Or basilisks. And if that's the case, what if the basilisks are using their powers in a more directed or sentient fashion? They want to turn things to stone, but it's arranged in a particular fashion. And that could also show who the alphas of this region are. If we want to go with dragons, we could go with giants. What if it's a giant's graveyard? And so the graveyard is that of petrified giant bones, and they're arranged to tell a story. There's so much that we can do with a prompt like this, so we should make some decisions here. Although I'll tell you, I should have. Hey, crowd! Welcome! Thank you for stopping in to see me here. Ponderosa is a type of pine, not necessarily referring to, it's not necessarily a canyon filled with trees. But it is a variety of pine. I should always keep dictionary.com open for this sort of thing. Yeah, hey, Orc was actually just here and ended up going to bed not that long ago. But yeah, welcome. We're running our workshop stream. We do this Wednesday through Saturday, and on Tuesdays we roleplay, so I can practice what I preach, and I don't seem like I'm a... I don't know, he was telling me about his character. He seems really neat. A mammoth graveyard, but it's not mammoths in the graveyard. Everything is big. Human-shaped bones, dog-shaped bones, bird, cat, fish, lizard. Yeah, Zeta, please go ahead and throw it out there. That's fine. Okay, so maybe we can use that as an idea. Whoops. Everything in this canyon is big. The trees, the rock walls. The bones you find could be those of dragons, but so too are the bones of humanoids, beasts, even minor creatures such as birds and fish seem to be preserved in the walls of the canyon. Perhaps even those who dwell here long enough also begin to grow, as if under the effects of an enlarged spell, and continue to do so to some detriment. The statue and the obelisk were created by someone to act as a boundary marker and a warning, both in a physical, like a body language fashion, as the statue, and maybe it's not even a statue, is several general body forms. And the obelisk has ancient written warnings and symbols of caution. Who created the canyon? I don't know. Pardon, someone did. A long time ago. Or the warning was left by people who didn't create this area, but understood what the effects were. And so they decided to leave they really, really tried to warn people that if you go into this canyon, you know, there's like a catalog of everything that lives here, just sort of maybe embedded in the sides, almost as if it's on display. Like this is some open, natural, if not kind of morbid, museum. Right on, I'll be in the background. I never played a tabletop, etc., but I don't mind watching and learning. Yeah, and crowdfunded, if you have questions, feel free to ask. What we're doing, this is all workshop stuff. This is D&D 101. This is storytelling. This is, maybe we're rolling some dice for some inspiration, but this is more of a jam session. We're here to create. We're here to think. And you don't need a D&D book in front of you to do that. Zeta says, so I made this enemy for my fighter, who I based off of Ain's Ol Gown from Overlord, if you've ever watched that. I have not. The character has a strong hate of undead that destroyed his village, and currently has a dislike of crabs due to an accident on board. I do remember you talking about the crabs, Zeta. So this necromancer is going to be the head necromancer of an undead army, and he has his friends who died as his crew. He also has a crab familiar just to mess with the player. Oh, jeez. that is definitely twisting the knife a little bit. Yeah, don't be afraid to ask, crowdfunded. This is, look, I'm trying to take a Bob Ross style approach, and I'll be blatant about it. You know, he wanted to teach people how to paint, and he went back to the basics. A lot of fundamental techniques, and a lot of things that were you know, it's empowerment, but not in a, I don't know, not in a hashtag kind of, oh yeah, empowerment, that's what we should be talking about. Like, not in a saccharine fashion. Like, we're unlocking this potential inside of you, because it has been there. It has been there this whole time, and you can do it. You just have to try. You have to practice. Happy trees, I dig it. Well then, crowdfunded. We're a bunch of happy tree hippies here. Look, and crowdfunded, this is a good example. We rolled the dice a couple times, and look at this very interesting thought process that's playing out. That's creating a very unique environment for us. You know, it's almost like a Mario, like a giant world kind of a thing. Zeta says he's also got a special skill game called The Goal of All Life is Death. 3 times per day skill that has a 120-foot radius restores defeated undead to half health if they aren't significantly damaged or damages players. Wait, and damages players. And then heals still living undead if it kills a player and turns them into an undead. That's pretty powerful. It's a lot of effects on an ability. Oh, yep. All right, so he's the big bad. Got it. All right, so I think we're onto something, and we can rather easily connect these two regions with each other as well. A side big bad, but big bad all the same. All right, let's take a short break. I don't think 10 minutes. I think I'm just gonna get up and stretch a little bit. I finished off my picture here. Let's take maybe 5 minutes. I mean, if I go 10, it's because I'm just kind of scarfing on some nachos real quick, or I mean, not nachos, but you know, I have some salsa. We're gonna take a short break, and we're gonna get back, and we're gonna generate 2 other broadly defined areas, and then we can go back and let's talk about a culture that can exist here. Let's talk about the people that can live here, or to somehow set them apart and add another layer to all of them. And we can add a layer one at a time, in order to keep the mentality going as we continue to roll through. And we're staking out. It's a sandbox, but look, it's really lines in the sand. Anything can be anything with the powers of our creativity as a dungeon master. And so we're really just setting some artificial boundaries and saying, all right, within this is what I want to consider, and we're going to go from there. You've always done RPGs on a console, Final Fantasy VII, Fallout, etc. It makes seeing where it all comes from worth watching. Well, hey, stick around for a little bit longer, crowdfunded, and we'll continue going down this process together.